Oh. Oh, hello. Oh, ambience. How's everybody tonight? My name is Chris Quinlan. Welcome to Melbourne Musos Facebook Live, and I will take all this out for you now. Oi! Ooh! Hello, everyone. There we go. All right. So what happens is my name is Chris Quinlan. Welcome, as I said, to Melbourne Musos Facebook Live. And tonight, I'm going to do a couple of things. I put up my little Facebook post before about, every Friday, 6 p.m. on the dot, since 2019. Around about this time, 2019, around about 4 years ago. I've been doing all this. So what it is tonight, I'll tell you what happened. What happened is I was sat down and I, started to watch the telly. Took a bit of time off from editing and everything else that goes with that, with the shows and everything. And I watched this show called the Kiefer Sutherland one, the new one, Rabbit Hole, which is great. So far, I'm enjoying it so far. And I was mesmerised with the music. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, and still to be shown on 31 next week. Hello, bloke, how are you? You're finding a new place to sleep. What happens is, you'll see that later. And what it is I was mesmerised by the music. And I said, that's got to be Trent Reznor. And the music was absolutely, or is absolutely wonderful. However, it wasn't Trent Reznor. It is Siddhartha Khosla, who's a Emmy Award-winning chap. Wonderful music, very atmospheric, and very minimalist in parts. Some parts reminded me of Trent Reznor's, Ghosts album, where there's a lot of, Adrian Belew is on that album, where there's a lot of ambience and lots of different things. So what I'm going to do tonight is talk about some of these people, okay? I've done the show just a couple of weeks ago, and it's going to be on Channel 31 next Wednesday, on the 26th. Hello, Erhu. There you go. And what it is I'll explain what I'm doing here, and I'll also explain or talk about some of these wonderful people. Now, when we're talking about Trent Reznor, we're talking about 9 Inch Nails. I'll put him up here. But so much of his stuff, I mentioned just the other week, the Fragile album, which I think is a masterpiece. It's like a soundtrack within itself, and very repetitive, hypnotic, if you will. And I'll try and play through things for you. Now what I've got here is an Erhu violin, Japanese, you see. And funnily enough, today, when I was preparing the show, my left side bass drum just had this tone. And so what I did was I set my triggers up to an F sharp Phrygian in fact, which I've explained. I explained it just the other week. So there's a lot of, I'm a teacher, I repeat things. But what happens is that this is with a new kind of bent. This is the one where I'm actually mentioning people and artists because it was to be honest, it was the Rabbit Hole soundtrack that's current. It's right now, first season, Kiefer Sutherland's new thriller, it's, sort of thing. It all seems to be based on bluff. But anyway, I'm not going to give anything away. Or maybe I just have. What it is I've got the air who on echoes. Okay, so when I play one note, I get that going. Now, when I'm doing things like this goes back to a show I did a couple of months ago about Robert Fripp and Brian Eno. Okay, with Eno's music for airports and Robert Fripp's soundscapes and the history of him, or both of them having two reel-to-reel recorders with the tape going across the room. But as soon as things went digital, so did they a little bit. And I often use the Brian Eno apps, which is wonderful, the Air app, the Trope app, and the Bloom app, okay? And there you have it. I use them quite a bit. And what often happens is that you're doing this kind of thing. And now I'd like to talk about, I'll talk about a chap by the name of John Hassell, okay? And I'll do this. Hang on, I'll just say it. John Hassell, trumpeter.
According to Wikipedia, John Hassell was an American
trumpet player and composer. He was best known for developing the concept of fourth world music, which describes a unified, primitive, futurist sound combining elements of various world ethnic traditions with modern electronic techniques. That's exactly what I'm doing now. I've got the Erhu violin, and I'm sampling, triggering, and just combining. So John Hassell, March 22nd, 1937, passed away June 26, 2021. As I've said, his world ethnic traditions, electronic techniques, one album, Fourth World, Volume 1, Possible Musics, his 1980 collaboration with the aforementioned Brian Eno. There you go. So that's John Hassell as one. I sort of skipped straight to John Hassell, mainly because I haven't really talked about him in the past. I've talked about Trent Reznor a lot. I've talked about Fripp and Eno just a couple of episodes ago, really about half a dozen episodes ago or so. Mike Patton is another favourite of mine, Phantom Ass and all this sort of business. He takes very similar things and puts it straight to sort of heavy stuff, a collaboration with some of the dudes from the Melvins. Oh! And so what happens is with John Hassell, this is this kind of, well, if we're going to talk about fourth world, minimalism. Now the heroes of minimalism is Philip Glass, Steve Reich, and a chap by the name of Gavin Bryars, who probably most famous piece is a thing called Jesus Blood Has Never Failed Me Yet, where there's a tape of a homeless man saying it, singing it, and repetitive, it keeps coming around. wrote a thing about the Titanic, and that was based on the idea of the musicians of the famous story of the musicians who went down with the ship playing to keep everyone, trying to calm people. Let's just do it, lads. Quite a famous heroic story. There you go. There you are. So there's that. There's a few people there. So what I'm doing is trying to name as many names. It's quite the name-dropping show tonight, because what I'd love you to do is go off and check all this business out if you can. You can put it on. I mean, Brian Eno put out things like music for airports and all this sort of stuff. He could have called it music for cooking. So it's cooked, mate, cooked! And it just comes round, like, oh, where am I? And there's kinds of music where if you put things to a beat, you get music concrete. And what happens is, this is where George Martin comes in with the big influence to the Beatles. The fifth Beatle, really, a lot of people talked about with George Martin. And he introduced Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, who is part of the bunch with Edgard Varese, who I've also talked about recently. And what it is sometimes you would just take everyday things, that kind of thing. You could just go like that, and it would echo. There you go, you're off. You could scratch. Found sounds. And then what would happen is you put it into context, and next thing you know, there's something. I was talking about Jaws the other week. So I could be doing like that. Could be silent in the film, then in the background. What does it sound? It's spiderish. What's that? Deadly Earnest, wasn't it? Channel 10. Get back. Like that. Deadly Earnest back in the day. So what starts to happen is you get all these techniques. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. One of the things I'm talking about people. I've talked about the following people. This all started because of what I'm finding is wonderful music. I'm a bit of a sucker for soundtracks. I love them. And what I thought was originally Trent Reznor doing the soundtrack for Rabbit Hole, but it's not. It's Siddhartha Khosla. Go check it out just for the music. If he puts out a CD based on Rabbit Hole soundtrack, I'm buying it. There you go. Frippinino, John Hassell I've talked about a little bit more in more depth tonight, not too much. Mike Patton I've talked about, George Martin I've talked about, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, Philip Glass, Steve Reich, Gavin Bryars. But now I'm going to talk about, with the time I've got left, a little thing called the prerequisite. What do you need? Okay. Now when I'm going to try and pull off these kinds of styles for the show, you're always chipping away. There's always work. I can't do I'm going to do a rock beat. No, I've already done that. I'm going to do, no, I've done that. I've done. So you're always searching. You're searching for new things. You're always, keep on moving forward, moving forward. I did something on that too. Anyway, but what goes on is if with the drums are a static instrument. You play it, that's the end of it, okay? That kind of thing. The other week I talked about ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, release. You do that when you're learning about synthesizers, working out your own sounds and all sorts of stuff. But what happens is that, generally speaking, you hit a drum, that's the end of it. So you've got to play a lot of notes to get a long note. You've got to play, like, if I'm just going to do that, I'm not thinking, like I've said, I'm not thinking lots and lots of notes. I'm just thinking like tied semi-breeze. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes, you see. Or something's happening. Someone's creeping around the corner. Something like that. Now that's a prerequisite for we drummers. A long, straight, single-stroke roll. No accent. So it has a certain timelessness to it. And then there's a thing called the threshold. Can you tell as I just... that extra note, you can hear the fundamental. And then the extra note coming in when I raise the threshold. Now I very sneakily went from single stroke roll to double stroke roll there. And when you want to change tones, get into a bit of minimalism. Oh, hello wrists, how are you today? Dad, what are you doing to me? Now the prerequisite there, get around your double strokes. Now I'm recording this on the 21st of April, and in a few days' time it's going to be Anzac Day. And a lot of people will be marching in honour. And the prerequisite is you've got to have your press rolls and your double strokes. Now when I'm doing things like this, the angles around the drums that I talk about. Like Karate Kid. Keep the fence side to side. Wash at the floor. Wax on, wax off. I got half those wrong, those quotes on. Keep on going. And then you start to layer things. This is a big thing with, even goes all the way back to Frank Zappa. Lumpy Gravies, Phase 1, 2, and Civilizations, Phase 3. His thing was xenochrony, where he takes disparate elements and slaps them together and creates things. Very much some of the work that Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, Edgar Varese did in the 50s and 60s. And that's what George Martin brought to the Beatles during their psychedelic era. Now, all of this needs to have a reference of some kind. So what happens is this kind of business. The reference will be the film itself, what's happening on the film. Okay, you can juxtapose, I love that word, juxtapose different elements. You could have something quite, confronting on the screen. Something quite, like a car chase ending in the that. But there's also that kind of thing where the context of it. And build it up. That's your prerequisite, In this particular case, it's your good old single paradiddle, mate. And then you can go off and do other things, you see. So it's ebb and flow. You have a sense of dynamics, have a sense of continuity. Comes up, comes back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Come in with a different time signature. But one of the things about prerequisites is the focus, how to keep the glue of it together. See, I could just be doing that. Like I said, it could be just the backing. We're just doing that with the fingers there. But as soon as I bring in the hi-hat or the 5, which I was just doing then, all of a sudden there's your anchor to a certain degree. So if I'll sort of go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. We're off. Something else might come in. it? I suppose I'd better start wrapping the show up. So there you go, there's my show tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll go through the names again. We have Trent Reznor, the person who really got me thinking about this today, Siddhartha Khosla, Down the Rabbit Hole with Kiefer Sutherland, Ripponino, John Hassell, Mike Patton, George Martin, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, Philip Glass, Steve Reich, Gavin Bryars. Because it's a drum show, did you know that Terry Bozzio approached Philip Glass to write him a piece? I don't think anything came of it. When you're talking about Brian Eno and Philip Glass, David Bowie collaborated with them for the Heroes Symphony and the Lows Symphony, two famous David Bowie albums, all the themes that David Bowie came up with. There you have it. Oh, okay. Weird ass show, isn't it? I'll have this up for you probably tomorrow and on Dear 31 in a couple of weeks' time. Now, just a little thing. I was going to do another show, and I'm very glad that I didn't put it up or whatever. I may as well bring it up. The first thing that came to me was like Mark Twain, I think it was, wasn't it? The news of my death have been greatly exaggerated. And I want to send a shout out to dear Ralph Humphrey, the drummer during the Overnight Sensation, Roxy and Elsewhere years of Frank Zappa, who is not well. But very sadly, there was a bit of misinformation put out that the news that he actually passed away, but he hasn't. He's still with us. So I'm very happy that I didn't say anything. But what I want to do is just finish this off by sending all my love, because I had the show. It's like, another tribute. What a life, that kind of thing. All that work he did with Frank Zappa, just incredible. And doing duets with Chester Thompson, which is on the Roxy film. Go watch it, oh my Lord, fantastic. There was a lot of trouble with that thing. They put out the Roxy and Elsewhere album and stuff, and they filmed it all. But for some reason, the film was all mixed up, mishmashed and all that, so it took lots of technology to finally get it up and running as far as the film is concerned. I got the album out all right. It's one of my favourites. I got the T-shirt. I wear the T-shirt often enough. But I just wanted to also just acknowledge that before I finish tonight. To dear Ralph Humphrey, incredible drummer to be able to play all that stuff. Overnight Sensation, Roxy and Elsewhere. Did the tour, came out to Australia with Frank Zappa in 1973. I was too young to go then. But I went the next time, but that was a young Terry Bozzio. So there's my shout out. all these people out. Wonderful music, one and all. Hey! Take care. Mwah! Now for a bit of editing, cordial.